Welcome to For Real I Do, an Eventrix podcast, where we help couples and families make confident decisions for modern Indian weddings. We believe that the best weddings are not created from following trends. They're created by making confident decisions that reflect your story, your traditions, and what matter most to you. Every episode is here to help you cut through the noise, navigate expectations, avoid unnecessary stress, and move forward with clarity so that you can spend less time second guessing and more time enjoying your engagement. Welcome back to For Real I Do, an Eventrix podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Nicole, and today we have two guests whose work has helped shape the way many of us think about multicultural luxury wedding photography. Joining me are Pervez and Nicole Taufiq, the husband and wife team behind PTaufiq Photography. Their work has been featured around the world, documenting celebrations that are deeply personal while maintaining an unmistakable editorial style. But what makes their perspective so valuable isn't simply the images that they create. It's a way that they approach people, culture, and storytelling. Luxury weddings often come with extraordinary production, beautiful design, and meaningful traditions. Yet behind every photograph is a couple that's navigating family dynamics, expectations, emotions, and moments that can never be recreated. Capturing that well takes far beyond technical skill. It requires presence, trust, and an understanding of really what matters most. In today's conversation, we're stepping behind the camera. We'll talk about building trust with couples, balancing artistry with authenticity, honoring cultural traditions, and why some of the most meaningful photographs are the ones that no one planned for. So whether you're newly engaged, planning a multi-day celebration, or simply someone who appreciates thoughtful storytelling, I think you'll walk away with a new appreciation for the role a photographer plays in preserving not only how your wedding looked, but truly how it felt. Appreciate it. Craziness that you're actually in Boston and not traveling the globe today. So not a normal day for you.
Not a normal day,
So
but
I
good
was
one.
I was intrigued by both of your diverse backgrounds for those couples that are tuning in that don't know a lot about you two. Please share a little bit of background. I mean, I think it's very crazy where the worlds that you came from and the worlds that you are in now and how that's really aided your success.
Sure, you wanna go?
Yeah. So I grew up in India, Mumbai, and my background is in modeling. I love fashion. I've done fashion shows, covers of magazines. So I come from that aspect, be in front of the camera, and yeah, and that's how my love for photography began because I would go to these like simple go downs and spaces, and then these photographers would add these lights and the whole production and take this great shot, and I'd be like, wow, how do they make that happen? So
Yeah,
that's when my interest and intrigue for photography began.
I love that.
Yeah, for me, I was a musician, I was a singer on a with a band on Atlantic Records for many years, toured with Korn, Ozzy Osbourne, Linkin Park, bunch of really cool bands that I loved growing up, and really fell in love with concert lighting and understood kind of the idea of the way concert lighting could make or break a show, right? So if you knew that you tipped the guy like $50, he would pay attention to your set and he'd be like, okay, cool. So we're gonna put backlights up here. We're gonna do this and the cross lighting. And I'd be like, yeah, great. And we get DMX program, the whole thing. And so we would do all that and we would have amazing shows when the lighting guy was on our side. So what we noticed is that even for music videos, when you want to create something that at the time when we didn't have money, we would create these like low budget like music videos, but it all came down to like how you lit it. So the most like crazy, storm drain essentially could turn into this amazing epic music video. And so that's what we, learned lighting from, and posing and everything else came from body language and understanding how to read people, and what that will look like, right? So that's how our first foray into things kind of happened. And then at some point, we were taking like vacation pictures when we go to Australia or somewhere or India, and we would do both of us would shoot and just have fun. And people would say like, "Oh, cool. Would you like to do a wedding?" And we were like, "No, we would not like to do a wedding. Like, what are we going to become wedding photographers?" And so the first one was a friend of ours who literally begged us. He was like, "Dude, it's not going to matter even if you fuck it up. Like, it's not going to be big deal." And so we were like, "All right, fine, we'll do it." And we had these like small little cameras at the time, and I thought we did horribly. But they loved it for some reason or another. So, and then we got another one. Another friend of ours asked us because he loved the photos. And then we did the second one, and then that's how it started. We never really kind of connected to it as much as, I think when we did our first Indian wedding, that's when culturally, at least, it felt very significant to us. We felt very um, challenged, right? I think when you do a wedding and someone goes and you say, what kind of photos would you like to see? And they're like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. Like if you get shots, you get shots. If you don't, you don't. You're like, so my usefulness in this is nil. You know what I mean? Like I'm not critical to you in any way, shape, or form. So, that kind of is the worst feeling I think to have, right? In not being useful. Um, so yeah, then we did our first Indian wedding and she was like, I want this and I want that and I want the light from here. And like, can you do that shot that you did? And we were like, yeah, this is our jam. Like this would be cool. And that's when it kind of like, I would say the bug,
It clicked.
yeah, we had the bug at that point. Yeah.
That was
So
it. We were
fun.
hooked.
Yeah. I'm curious just because how does a rock star meet a model? How did y'all meet? How did your world
It's a good story.
cross?
So in fact, I was in India for my sister's wedding, Nikah, in Madurai. And so I have a lot of friends in Bombay. And so I had gone down to essentially see them for 2 days. And so I only had 2 days before I had to fly back home. And I went to Bombay, and the moment I touched down, my friends were like, hey, we're going straight out to this place called Blue Frog, which is like a concert venue, like jazz, kind of cool live music and everything else. So this part's not sexy, but I was in the bathroom taking a piss, and suddenly I turn around after I'm done, and I see the back of this guy's head, and I'm like, Beej? And he goes, oh my God, what are you doing in Bombay? And it's this kid I haven't seen since high school. I went to high school with him. And so he had moved to Bombay. And so he was like, hey, we're going to the bar. I haven't seen you in so many years. Like, we're going to get a shot. We get a quick shot of Jaeger. And then someone screams, group photo. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I happened to be standing next to this one. So after the group photo was done, I asked her, I was like, so what do you do? Kind of like half interested. And she goes, oh, I'm a yoga instructor. And I was like, you know what? Good for you that you could be a model because you're gorgeous, but like you're not a model. Like that's amazing. Like I can't stand models, right? I was like, well, it's like, when you're a musician, everyone's a model and this and that. So you're like, oh, if I meet another model, I'm going to shoot myself. Like I just can't stand it. So at the end of the day, we had such a great conversation. And then my friend whisked me away to another place. And I was like, oh, well, that's that, right? So who shows up? This one. So she comes in and I'm like, oh my God. My friend goes, oh my God, that's the same girl from the place, right? And I was like, yeah. So we talked again briefly. I said, hey, listen, I'm in town for like 2 days. My friends and I are going out to Shiro tomorrow night. And if you want to come, we'll exchange numbers. And she said, yeah, sure. That sounds like fun. And so we exchanged numbers, but I had this old what was it, like a Nokia phone, like because the iPhone wasn't working, and so I had this like old punch in the number Nokia phone, and I totally messed it up, and I didn't save the number or whatever. I put it in the wrong way, and so that was the end of the conversation. So she left, she went her way, and I went my way. Then there's an after party that we went to. And who shows up after about 30 minutes is this one. So we're both in the same place. So now I'm like,
You're both on the
that's, like,
same
really
energy
funny.
frequency. That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
cool.
totally. So we talked again. We were like, hey, how's it going? And that was it. Then I end up at another after party at this place. This guy's Alex's
It was
place.
a lit night.
It was a very lit night. This is a typical night in Bombay, to be honest with you. This is that's a very Bombay thing. So we go to this guy.
It's a really private party, meaning it's my closest of closest friends, and then there's Pervez over there again. I was like, oh my gosh,
It's really funny.
4 times the same night.
So we end up at I end up at Alex. This guy Alex is this like apartment complex. And like, again, 40 minutes later, she walks in. And so now at this point, we started having a conversation. I said, look, I'll be honest with you. I totally screwed up your number. Like, could you just put it in yourself so I can like save it? So she puts it in, very sweet. We had a great conversation. I think one of her best friends thought I was getting too close with her. So pulled her away because we were out in the balcony smoking cigarettes, and
When we
that
smoked
ended up being
cigarettes.
her bridesmaid
Yeah,
for our wedding. So it was really funny.
she
No,
was.
she was right. That's too funny. And so yeah, that's how we met. And then we didn't talk for 3 months. This is the funny part. We didn't talk for 3 months. I went back home my way. She added me on Facebook. I didn't realize she'd added me on Facebook because it looked like a fake profile. And so I didn't accept it for 3 months. And then, which is still mad at me about,
Nice.
but so when I finally added her, I realized she's a model. So all her like covers show up. Her like she's done the Miss India stuff with Lakme, all this crazy stuff. So at some point, my friend calls me and asks me if I know a model or an actress for a Lady Gaga video he's shooting. And I was like, oh, yeah, actually, I do know someone. So I called her up on the same number. She was in Paris at the time. And I said, I don't know if you'd be interested. And by this time, she's seen my band and liked our music and everything else. And she's like, I can't because I'm under contract, but I'd love to do your music video. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. So we talked for like 10 hours that night. Really good conversation. And part of the conversation was, would you ever move to India, to America or whatever, that type of thing? She was like, I would never move to America. I love India. I would love to be born and die here, that type of thing. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, I would never move to India, like permanently. Right. So I think a relationship was off, right, in that regard. So we're just being ourselves and just being very natural people. And then I think as a result of that, we just ended up sharing a lot with each other that you normally wouldn't share with people that like you're trying to impress or that type of thing. So that was basically what we did. And then
Mhm.
I think 3 or 4 days later, we realized we're not friends. Like, we're just having these conversations like very like friends, but we're not really like friends like that. Like, so I realized that I have to send her flowers and be like, hey, I don't really want to be in the friend zone. Like, so, and then 10 days later, I think we had such a great conversation. We were just having conversations every night, 10 hours every night. And so
While I was shooting a documentary.
yeah, she was there for like this documentary that she was doing and doing like the
Oh my
Cannes Film
gosh.
Festival and all this crazy stuff. So
Yeah.
if you looked her up for Saha Ali,
Oh,
you'd see like
geez.
all these celebrity photos with her and like the
Alain
pres like Bill
Delon.
Clinton and Alain Delon and all these crazy people. Um,
So yeah, I would
and
get
she
the script every night. I'd get my script for the next day, and I had to learn everything. But instead, I was with P on the phone. So in the morning, as they were doing my makeup, I'm like studying because I
passing
know the
out.
whole production's relying on me to like get my lines in. So yeah, that
It
was
was really
that
it was
was
really
intense.
funny, but she was escaping like the King of Monaco was trying to like hit on her and
Okay,
like all
let's
that
not say it.
crazy. Okay, I don't know if
Let's
I'm
not.
allowed to say that,
No,
but
no.
anyways, like crazy
I
stuff.
mean, yeah, you're
So
gorgeous.
she yeah, she's a beautiful woman. And so she would leave those things and kind of want to just talk to me and continue conversations with me. And so we were up like every night or like every day, like, just having these conversations. And after 10 days, I'm like, look, I don't know what we're doing here, but I just know I can't live my life without you. And so I think we should get married. And she goes, I agree. And that was it. And so I called her parents, her dad, like told him.
Most interesting
She called
conversation.
my parents, and it was a very weird thing. But then, yeah, that was it. So
Oh my
that's
gosh,
our
I
story.
love your story. That will it really seems like fate, to
Yeah,
be honest. The fact that you
yeah,
met in that way. I mean, so, because right now your lives are so, immersed in this, really, I call it a lifestyle, right? Like what
yeah,
you do isn't just like a job or a career. I think that's what's very different about the two of you is that it is your way of life, like
yeah,
art
yeah.
and culture and being on site for these events. I mean, how do you build this like luxury brand globally and still like maintain essentially
Mhm.
your sense of normal for like what would be normal for the two of you?
Yeah, I think that we figured out ways to make it work.
Mm.
What we knew is that we wanted to do this. I think
Mhm.
in November of 2019, I was shooting weddings, and she had started joining me for weddings, and she was such a huge asset and inspiration because in a lot of ways she became my muse, right? To like test
Mhm.
lighting and then like also work through posing stuff that I wasn't sure about at the time. And so she looked at me and was like, "Look, if you want to quit your job, like don't not do it. Like, I would encourage, I think that you should do it, And I was like, wow. Because at the time I was making a lot, to be honest with you, in my day job. It was more than I think most people would consider someone making in a tech job, right?
Sure.
And every time I'd go to leave, they'd start adding zeros. And not even kidding, I would go to leave and they'd be like, well, hypothetically, how much would you? And I'm like, There's no amount." And then they'd show me an amount, and I'd be like, "Fuck."
And I would tell him, do not come home without telling me you've quit that
Yeah,
job.
seriously. Because I was miserable.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I was miserable.
Yeah.
I was good at it, but I was miserable. And I've always been into tech stuff since I was like 14. So, I worked for the government very young, and I worked with the FBI and the CIA, and I was a hacker basically very, very young. So that was kind
Okay.
of my world. I was very good at it because it came naturally, but I hated that, like, people telling me about like numbers and like all this stuff like all day long. So at the time we had 2 kids and a third
Was
on the
pregnant.
way, and she was pregnant. Yeah. And so in November of 2019, we shot this wedding in Marrakesh, this crazy $5 million thing in the desert, right? And I remember I was on my phone, and on my headset, just working as, like, I can see in the background the Gypsy Kings are playing, as a musical guests, and Hugh Grant is in the, in the crowd. So it was, I was like, what am I doing? And at some point I was like, I can't take this call. I have to do photos. And they were like, wait, what? And so to them, they were like, you're on call. I'm like, call the secondary. I can't do this anymore. And so I was working at a very big, financial institution, which I don't think I should mention, but nevertheless, they were like, Jesus, okay. And I had stopped, and it sounds like an Office Space thing, but I had stopped showing up to work to try to get them to fire me. They just would not let me go. And then that was the end of it. It was November 2019, and that's when we said, okay, if we're gonna really do this, we have to find a way to make this work, because we loved travel, and we loved, seeing places, and like kind of like being involved with new couples and meeting new people. So it was I think it's a perfect symmetry for what we'd always thought was on our mood board, our vision board, whatever they call
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
But so it just kind of, that kind of took place, and then the pandemic hit, right? And then we said, Jesus, if we don't figure this out quick, we're going to be in trouble. And it was a difficult place to be.
Because we just had the baby too.
Yeah, we just had the
And we're
baby.
like,
Yeah.
okay, we got to pivot. This is an opportunity. While people are
Yeah.
sheltering in place, this is when we need to strike while the iron's hot,
Yeah.
so to speak. And
Right.
so that was our strategy. And everyone thought we were crazy. They're like, no, no, no. And again,
Should get a
new
day job.
baby to do all of this, but we invested everything, our time. He quit his job. So we had, there was no other time than
Yeah.
now to like make that big move.
So it was literally
It
like,
was
I think,
it was not. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And I think the beauty of when you build a business as an entrepreneur is when there is no parachute,
Mm.
there is no like safety net. You go, okay, well, if we don't make it, like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like, we're in trouble. So there is no option to fail.
Yeah.
So it was just like do or die, which I thought was really, instrumental. And it meant, like, when everybody, I think, was like hanging out, like just doing their own thing, we were up every night, like
Strategizing.
strategizing,
Planning.
working, building SEO, building
Yeah.
sites, creating like, strategies, building social media, all of that stuff. So it was literally, and I'm not kidding when I say this, like 8 months, 9 months of maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night. And that's hard to sustain, because all your friends go, why aren't you, like, you don't have to do, you're like, you could get a paycheck from the government. Like, why are you, and for us, it was like, no, but this is the time. Like everybody else is asleep. We need to be awake. We need to be on this,
Yeah.
because we can catch up fast. And so that's kind of how it happened. We did 45 weddings in, the pandemic of 2020, and then 2021 we did 145, 170,
73.
172, yeah, or 3 or something, yeah. So we just scaled. We've scaled very fast. We realized that the only way to really, at least sustain the life that we had, was to scale things out and to be able to be, in more places at the same time. So that meant building a team, a back end, admins. So we hired a very big team, trained them, like they came to the house for like a week. We would train them on posing and this and that, and how to handle certain difficult situations. And
Yeah.
there are, like, in weddings, right? So it's not native to kind of understand how to be graceful. sometimes in moments of pressure.
Mhm,
So those are things that are taught,
mhm.
right?
To
And so
understand the culture,
that too, yeah,
that's so important. The
100%.
nuances of the ceremony, what's significant, what's not. So you're not just, shooting reactively or like thinking about it, you're anticipating. That take and then you
Mhm.
that gives you the space to be creative in those moments
Yeah.
versus just shooting, being hot on the trigger.
Like that is a
Right.
tough thing,
The
I think
Yeah.
for yeah.
The fact that you took the time to actually go through cultural significance with your second shooters and to make sure that everything felt
Yeah.
consistent and on brand, I will say, being in this industry for a really long time, we've worked with many different photographers, and that is not always the case. And I literally, one of the questions I was going to ask you was, how important is it for couples to hire photographers that have that cultural experience? Because I get this question a lot from couples because they'll
Yeah.
look on Instagram, they'll see something that looks pretty, and then they'll think that's gonna translate to their wedding day, and I'm like,
Mm,
"You don't understand, like, that person's working a white dress wedding that's, like, over in 8 hours, whereas
yeah.
what you're wanting is, like, 30-hour marathon over the course of 3 days." Like, I guess maybe what advice would you give to couples that are looking at hiring photographers that maybe don't have that cultural experience? Because obviously, that I think that's a big part of what both of you do is you bring that to the table outside of many other
Yeah.
attributes.
I I would probably say that, look, I don't think you need to hire. You don't have to hire an Indian photographer or videographer, right? Sometimes that perception is there. It's only there because I think parents have certain expectations. If you hire, for example, someone who does, I say white weddings, it's not because they're white people, but because they're white dresses, right, at the end of the day. And so I say, like, if you hire someone who does white weddings, at the end of the day, that's okay. You just have to set your expectations that there are gonna be things that are gonna be missed, and sometimes those things are critical things. A large part of our team are Filipinos. There are, Latin Americans, Mexicans. We have people from all over who become obsessed with the culture to the degree that they know what the Havan is, right? They know what Jaymala is. They know where it's supposed to be. They speak to the priest very respectfully and say, like, Maharaj, could you, if you don't mind, it's not centered. Would you mind if we just, and they know how to say uncle and auntie, and they understand those things. So if someone's very passionate about it, right, I think you could do incredibly well.
It just reminds me about while Pervez is doing that, this bride was telling me how she had a non-Indian photographer and they were doing the chuda ceremony. And he just thought, oh, they're just putting bangles. So he didn't capture it,
Oh, yeah. I'm
you know?
telling you, it's hard for on our end because you constantly feel like you're looking for the photographer. Like, where?
Yeah, that's a horrible feeling,
That's
and
scary.
and so that's the tricky thing. So it's not just about competency. I think that, for example, if you know what exactly is happening during Feras, right? Feras is a very iconic moment, right? Where the family is watching as the bride is leading the groom or the groom is leading the bride, right? So we see things that happen sometimes that you're like, wait a second, that's not what's supposed to happen there, right? You know that the chairs have to be pushed back from the hub and that they have to have enough space so that so that her langa doesn't catch fire as it goes around, right? But you
Yeah.
also have to know that there's a synchronicity, there's a rhythm, and this is where music for me is such a big deal. There's a rhythm to the walk, and there's a rhythm to when flowers are thrown. Like, if flowers aren't thrown at the right time, and if they're at the front of the mandap, then guess what? You don't have that epic shot of, like, them looking at each other with the flowers. Now, number one, selfishly, we want the photo, right? Of, like, them crossing with the fire in the front as the foreground, and that happens in this beautiful moment when flowers are all like surrounding them and they're laughing and smiling because it's such a beautiful moment. But also, we kind of coach them and guide them to look at each other. Selfishly, we want the photo, but also there's just this thing that we have that, like, I want to say psychologically, we like to nudge people together. So we find ways for them to connect emotionally. And when they're very present and there's no stress on them and they're just kind of looking at each other, they remember those moments. They're like visceral reactions when they see the photos again. He's like, "Oh my god, I remember looking at you at that moment," and, like, he's like,
Mhm.
"Wow, yeah, me too." And, like, so, it becomes this, like, anchor in their life. And so, because every couple goes through difficulty, right? I think that it's one of those things that when you go through difficulty in your life, sometimes there's a little anchor, and whether it's a kid or something else, there's a picture or something, you look at that and you go, "You know what? Forget everything else. Like, this is who we are. Like, don't forget that this is who we are. And then that thing, it seems small,
Mhm.
comparatively, right? Because you've built something together, and that is a very big thing to go through. So from that perspective, we try to create creative moments of that. Like, if you don't even know what the moment is, like, you can't be creative. You're just struggling to get the moment.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a
Right.
second, what's is he looking at her, what, why? And so there's so many little things of like, okay, he grabbed his toe. Why did he grab his toe? Oh, I need to show him and the other guy the context of the two of them when he's holding the toe and looking up, right? Oh, that's a beautiful moment. Why? Because he's the brother saying, don't go. Like, you can't go with my sister. Like, you can't take her. And that's
Mhm.
beautiful, right? That's significant. Like, I'm not Hindu, but the reality is I have fallen deeply in love. Both of us have fallen deeply in love with the Hindu like symbolism and the culture, and
So beautiful.
so much that
So
means
much of
something.
history that goes behind it.
100%.
I
Yeah.
learned Sanskrit, so I know when to anticipate for my shots. I remember shooting this funny story. I was shooting this wedding, and the priest was a family priest who had a stroke 4 months before.
Mm.
So they were so happy that he made it for the ceremony. And as the ceremony was going on, I was like, he just skipped 4 steps. So I went to the mandap, and then I told the mom, like, hey, something's up. Oh no, no, he just had a stroke. So then I guided him, and we did the ceremony together as I was shooting the photos. And then
Oh
I was
my
telling,
god.
"Okay, now we got to do this and this." And he's like, "We have to do that later." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, we'll do that later, but now we got to do this." He's like, "Okay." So the whole time we did it was the most, but
He's a sweetheart,
it's
yeah.
that level of experience and confidence because I knew, I mean, because we've done so many and I know
Mhm.
Sanskrit, so that,
Mhm.
it's stuff like that. Like we want to take that extra step, and make sure that we capture the photos like they would have wanted us to capture their
And,
photos.
and I think part of what you're saying, just to comment on that, is you have to be bold enough, right? Like, you
Mm.
have to be bold enough.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes, and you've seen this too,
Oh, yeah.
but so many times that when you have the priest who sometimes just goes a little off center, and you're like, wait, what are you doing? And he doesn't guide the couple, and the couple's walking around the fire not holding hands, and you're like, wait, that can't be right in any way, shape, or form. That can't be right. So you're like, hold hands, guys. And they're like, okay, oh yeah, oh right, yeah, fine, and you have to kind of guide them through that. And sometimes the priest is not going to do all that,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Sometimes he may do the Jaymala behind the oven,
Mm.
which we've seen,
Mhm.
or he may think that north is this way, so we're going to face the couple sideways.
An
We've seen that
angle.
happen, and we're like,
Oh
what
gosh.
are we doing here? So
Yeah.
you have to almost stop it. One time I stopped it. I remember stopping it, and the priest said, "Look, this is the true thing. This is true north, and so we have to go this way." And so we were like, "I understand, but the audience is this way, so they won't see it. Like, they won't get their Jay Mala moment. They won't see it at all." And he's like, "Well, look, no, everyone will say he did it the wrong way." I said, "I promise you, nobody's gonna say that." It's like, I promise you, the people who like are gonna care about it the most is the couple, and they
Right.
need to. So they had a meeting and everything else, like on the month up, and I was like, finally, the couple's like, "Thank you so much. Like,
Yeah.
thanks for
Right.
advocating," because you, as a couple, it's hard to
Mm.
say, sorry, priest, could we do it different? Because you're the couple getting married. So they would automatically say to you,
Mhm.
listen, just sit down and get married. Like, let me handle the
Oh
priest
yeah.
part. Stay in your lane, that type of, attitude. So,
Mhm.
and it's nothing against the priest, but like at the end of the day, and you have to be an advocate for what your couple wants. Not now, right? Not just in the moment, but 15 to 20 years from now, you have to know what they're going to really want to see. And sometimes you got to push them for the photo with the mom, right?
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
Because let's be honest, and it's sad to say this, but like, our parents don't live forever. And
Yeah.
and and so, we don't get paid any extra to do it, but at the end of the day, you know what they're gonna want in 15 to 20 years. And so
Yeah.
that is what you're shooting for,
Yeah.
realistically,
Yeah.
you know?
Honestly, I think you both have articulated that that is probably the best answer to that question that I think any couple could probably, I mean, truly, if there's a couple that's on the fence and they're looking at pros and cons and what really is important and valuable, honestly, I think you nailed that because that's so supportive for couples to
Thank you.
understand because there's really not, I mean, even photographers that understand the culture. I mean, I don't know a lot of photographers that are going to get up on the mandap and
Yeah.
chat with the priest and also just be an advocate for the couple to make sure they're going to get the shot, like similar for that couple who is going to face
Sure.
north. And it's like people are going to actually remember like what the heck was going on more so than they're going to remember like, oh, they weren't facing north. Nobody's pulling out their
Mhm.
compass, I think in that
Yeah.
moment. And I think good for you for advocating for that because I guess you kind of answered a little bit of my question of like how you actually capture genuine emotion over
Mm,
directing. And so I think part of that is almost like that balance where you're going to direct, but you're also
mm,
not going to get so far in the way that like it doesn't feel genuine anymore.
right. There's this line. It's a funny thing. It was recently, right?
Mm.
We did a wedding in Orlando. This is a very sad story, but I'm telling it anyways. But the bride the bride's mom was stage 4 cancer.
Mm,
Um, Tubes in the ear, the whole nine, right? Like very difficult thing. Now, I think she was just fired up on the morning and, we had some getting ready shots to do. Mom's in the wheelchair. We're like, "Hey, look, we would really love it if she we just adjusts an earring, something, and just looks at you, right? Just like has a little quick thing like for getting ready." She's like, "No, we don't have time. Like we just," and I'm like, "Look, you gotta slow down." Like I held her hands and I was like, "You gotta slow down. Just let me do this thing. Let me do the thing that we need to do." And so, sure enough, we did the shot. Of course, the moment the shot happened, I said, like, you guys look at each other, connect for a moment, and have that second there. Um, Sadly, the mother passed 2 weeks later, right?
wow.
So, bride, of course, is very grateful. She's like, if you didn't force me, that's one of the few moments I have with my mother that's like that. We
Hmm.
took the tubes off and everything, cleaned it up, made it look really beautiful. But what you can't fake and can't clean up through AI or anything else is that feeling of her looking at her mother. And to
Hmm.
her, even though we staged it, this is the crazy, beautiful, true thing. To
Hmm.
her, it's real. That
Yeah.
moment is real because she's really connecting with her. And
Hmm.
so there's a line, I think there's a very thin line between what's real and what's not real. And the way we perceive our memories is when we see something that feels very real, we go, I can feel the emotion from that. And so
Hmm.
sometimes you create something, a moment, um, that is staged, right? And
More like art directed. I
yeah,
think there's a place for both of them. There are times when you can just let the moment unfold, and then sometimes, like Pervez, has a little nudge, and help
yeah,
them find that space, give them that space, and give them permission to go to that space. Because at the
Hmm.
end of the day, it's like high intensity. You're shooting a wedding, so many things are happening.
yeah.
Just trying to make them feel present when they are with us for that 1 hour, and keep that time sacred.
Hmm.
And they don't know that it's I think at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they because you've nudged them together, even though some people would say, "Oh, yeah, but you're stepping in too far," and that's like too
Hmm.
sometimes people don't have those moments. Like, I'll be honest with you, like, year 1,
Mm.
I would say
I know
6
what you're gonna
months
say.
6 months in,
Yeah.
we sometimes you catch a beautiful thing, right? And you're like, "Wow, the groom got lifted up in the barat, and it was this amazing moment, and, like, it happened organically, and the groomsmen just knew to do it, and they happened to point him the right way, and that moment, because there's a lot of things that could happen
Right.
wrong for that moment to happen. It's fortuitous. And
Right.
then we would have a wedding where the groom would go, "Yeah, I wish they would have picked me up." And we're like, I love that shot that you did. I wish
Hmm.
you oh, well." But, most photographers and videographers would probably say, "What could we have done?
Just
Like,
capture
what can we do?
organically.
Capture organically, don't step in, don't do
Yeah.
this, don't do that."
Hmm.
Our advantage was like, and pardon my French, but fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm not waiting for that moment. I do not want my groom to not have that moment. I
Hmm.
don't.
Yeah.
And, whatever line I need to step over, if I need to jump on the top of a vehicle, which I do, jump on the top of a vehicle and grab the
Right.
mic and do whatever I need to do and take that music background that I have and add that to the mix and kind of lead the crowd,
Mhm.
then I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it. And I remember watching DJs kind of see me do it, and they were like, "Dude, what are you doing? That's
Yeah.
crazy. I've never
Yeah.
seen anyone do that." And you're like, that's when it clicked for us that like no
Mhm.
longer are we gonna be this passive, like, whatever happens, and hopefully it goes the right way. And if it doesn't, what can we do? And I think our thing was, no, let's be advocates for them. Let's be their friends. Like at the end, we get very close with our couples because we're so emotionally tied, and we're
Yeah.
like, wow, like it's incredible because we feel so close to them at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's this fierce, like, protective kind of feeling that you're like,
Yeah.
"I just want it to go right for them. I want them to have
Yeah.
this. I need them to have it be perfect. I need them to be happy at the end because
Yeah.
they're spending all this money and they're spending all this time, they dream about Indian people are crazy. We're crazy people. We dream about our weddings like we're little people,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're like, "I
Yeah.
can't wait." Like, our
Yeah.
son, what does he tell us?
He wants to be married by the time he's 25, so he's got to figure out how he can reverse backward and become rich sooner.
There you
Yeah.
go. You know what? Your son is like a whole different topic. He clearly is, I mean, the talent, and I mean, how many countries have they already traveled to? I mean, it's insane just the
Like
amount of
40.
culture and exposure, and quite frankly, I just think it well rounds you as a human being to be
I
able to
mean,
be exposed to so much more. But, Pervez, I was gonna say, I was gonna ask you, like, is there, a particular client, or is there's like this ideal client that you have? But what's so interesting, the recent experience that I had with you,
yeah.
and I really, really learned in lifetime how much you did advocate for your couples.
Yeah.
Uh, but one of the things in particular was when we were at the Gurdwara, because we did like two ceremonies in the same day, which, by the way,
Oh,
couples,
yeah.
do a Hindu ceremony and a Sikh ceremony in the day, like radical acceptance. It's a 20-hour marathon for you. You
Oh,
will not
yeah.
sleep, and like, it's a lot. But anyway, so we were setting up the Bharat, and our lovely couple, he had all the cars shipped in to this destination location. So we had all these cars that's like, usually you got one car at the Bharat, and we had like three or four, I don't know, but it
Yeah.
was it was an army of vehicles. And I remember I'm out there, I'm like, okay, they're all lined up. I've got the DJ here, I've got the horse here, da da da. And you come up to me and you're like, we need to move this car here. This car needs to be here. This needs to be here. And I respected that as much as I'm like, oh man, I gotta like explain this to these guys. Like, da, da, da. But it's like when I saw their video, you
Yeah.
100% like learning about this couple, like you just got their vibe. And when that video came to fruition, it was 100% what he was gonna want. It just
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
that grandiose appear, that, like, just full on appear with all the vehicles. I mean, it was cool. It was really
Yeah.
cool.
I
Otherwise, we would've had them all in a single file line behind him, right? Like,
Yeah.
what I was doing. So I think also being a little bit in the moment to say, like, I can already see 3 steps ahead what this is gonna visually look like, so
Yeah.
let me go ahead and also be a participant. Because a lot of photographers won't do that, right? You're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, we got a time crunch, we just gotta move this thing forward," and I'm with you, in terms of
Yeah.
just, "Hey, we're gonna take the 5 or 10 minutes, and we're gonna do this
Yeah.
right."
Well, I
'Cause
appreciate you because honestly, not every planner will trust the vision.
it's
So,
hard, man,
it's
Pervez,
a hard
we're type A.
I know, and then the thing is, we found that out, like, the hard way. So, like, I think year 1, we had, planners were like, "Well," and again, there's just, like, stay in your lane type of thing, and in your head, you're like, but I know, like, I know what this will look like at the
Visually,
end, so,
yeah.
like, I have to, like, you become this, dog with a bone, and you're like, I don't just please help me, like, do
Yeah.
this." And sometimes, when our year 1, I think planners were like, "No." Like, "No, we're not gonna do that. We have to stay on time, and that's the only." But for us, we feel like, "Hey, look, a good planner is not just one that is judged or gauged by metrics of, like, they stayed on time, so therefore,
Mhm.
Mhm.
it's like, what was the experience? What is the end result? Were they happy?
Ye Mhm.
And I love that about you guys is that, like, there was this feeling of, "Okay, cool. Like, I know we're running late, but, like, they're gonna really want this,
Yeah.
and so, like, we gotta run it down." And so, her and I are both very, like, sometimes she's doing this bridal thing, and sometimes the bride is not there 100%. We did actually in the Gurdwara, remember?
Yeah.
Upstairs,
Yeah.
there was this, like, and it's a small little closet. It was
Yeah.
like nothing.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
like a
it's the
nothing thing,
holding room. We
and
call
there
it
was
the
a
holding
window. Yeah, exactly, and there was, like, a window, and I walked into the room with, like, 4 girls doing this crazy thing and, like, this guy holding this sheet up, and sure enough, those shots came out. They were amazing, And,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And it's
And
one of those
sometimes
where the tiredness sets in,
oh,
right? Like,
yeah.
also, I remember even that same wedding. I mean, obviously we had the whole morning and then we're, doing the Hindu ceremony. And even after it was like, you could tell a couple was like, we've hit a
Glazed.
wall. We've hit a wall here. But it was like, hey, we're not gonna not get these group photos and we're not going to not get this because
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
now, but you're gonna look back on this. And it is a little bit of that, like, reading the energy but nudge, like, how, like,
Yeah, yeah.
let's get this, but also at the same time, like, we understand if you need a break and a snack and a glass of
Yeah.
water, but, like, to some extent too, being respectful but also still getting what is needed that that
Yeah.
they're gonna appreciate later.
Look, we did a wedding recently, I don't know if I can say all this. Okay, I'm gonna
Be
say
Anything
it.
vague,
I
but
send
I'll
you,
be
I
I'll
get
send
the
the final
point
script and
across.
you can
No, that's
yeah,
what I'm
yeah, yeah.
saying. Get the point across. Just
I
don't mention locations and just talk about the
we did a
experience.
wedding that was uh it was a very high-end wedding, yada yada. But the couple was like, okay, the bride wanted to go, right? The bride was like very in. Groom was a typical groom. I think it was like, like I want to go hang out with the boys and do shots and like, that's how I want my, thing to go. And he was done. But we had only started photos. We had only had like maybe a minute and a half, and I could see the planner on the side who's not working with us going to the couple, right? And the groom's like, yeah, I don't really, you know what I mean? But like that's the wrong thing, like because I
Yeah.
think in that moment, I remember talking to the planner and saying, it wasn't even the head planner; it was like just someone who was trying to thought advocating for the bride and groom was advocating for their comfort first, right? But the
Mhm.
truth is, comfort breeds nothing. Like
Mhm.
you will have comfort, like the next day you'll have comfort. You can
Mhm.
spend the whole day by the pool, right? At the end of the day, but if you don't get that photo in the moment, to not have couples photos
Yeah.
on your wedding day,
Yeah.
or something else, but like on your wedding day, like
Mhm.
that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like those are the only shots that you look back and you go, "Oh, that was our wedding. Remember
Yeah.
that, honey?
Mm.
What a beautiful thing." I know because we went through it. Our
Mhm.
wedding was 70-person thing in Key West, and like it was very small, very
Yeah.
tiny little thing, which
And our photographer disappeared.
yeah, and he disappeared because he wanted to smoke some weed. So,
So very few
he just,
photos.
he's
So this is
out.
why when I shoot
He was like
weddings, I say I tell my team, shoot weddings like you're shooting your brother,
sister,
your sister,
yeah,
somebody in your
somebody,
family. You know what I mean?
because
Right.
Stakes are high.
yeah,
Right, right. I love that, Pervez, and I will say, I mean, even with working with you recently and coming up working with you again, which I'm really excited
yay.
about, is I genuinely respect that you can have a not so fun conversation, a little side powwow, and say
Mhm.
like, "Hey, here's where I'm at," because I think I'm a big believer on if you sort of just like let the moment pass and you brush it under the rug. People also don't like, I now feel so much more even like prepared, like the next wedding I work with you in terms of like, okay, I know that like he's going to want, like, we need to give him a little bit more time here and it's almost like if you just stick to the script and you can't adapt and you don't grow and you don't learn, I think that that's kind of plaguing the industry a little bit. Like, you can have your
Yeah.
perspective and but you also just want to like grow with the people that you ultimately are going to end up
Oh,
partnering
yeah.
working
I
with. And
totally agree. I totally agree. And sometimes it's a learning curve. We had this thing that, one time in
No, and don't say
again,
it.
I can't
Oh my God.
you're
He's
like,
being so specific,
I don't
really.
give a fuck. I'm like,
No, no,
I'm that
let's
guy. I don't
not.
give a shit.
I know,
So,
but just not. Okay.
but like, we did, and honestly, it was a cultural thing, right? I think it was year two. And I have a tendency to grab the mic. I will grab the mic. I'll get up there. I'll like,
Mhm.
scream at people.
I
Like,
now
get,
know this
get
about you.
yeah, because I'm a singer, and so I'm used to leading very big crowds,
Totally,
and
totally.
so we were doing this thing outside this iconic museum, and the DJ at the time, I was like, "Hey, can I grab the mic?" And he didn't know me, and he had not seen our Instagram, or he had zero idea who I was. So he was like, "Just tell me what you want, I'll get it done. You can do your thing. I'll do the MC thing." And I was like, all right, fine. Okay, cool. I'll play. So I was like, hey, would you mind just putting the whole Bharat so that the museum's in the back, because it's a beautiful moment, and they were facing the parking lot. Like the
Right.
back of them was a parking lot, and I could see it. I was like, if we want this beautiful shot that bride and groom are going to want, like the groom's going to want this shot in front of the iconic like pillars and all this stuff, and he looks at me and he goes, "Fuck you," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "But you just asked me to ask you, and now you're saying fuck you," and so I saw like I just something clicked and I was like, "Fuck, all right, fine." And so I went without the mic, and I've done it before without a mic. Like I don't need I have a very loud voice to my kids' dismay, like, to my wife's dismay as well. So I'm when I'm doing the dad thing, like I'm like, "All right, everybody, get over," and everyone's like moving, and so they getting back this thing, and the DJ's like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "We need them here. That's where you need to be with them. Go stand with them. I'll get a good photo of you with the group, right? Because you got to take care of your vendors." And now, of course, that same DJ and I are friends. And he apologized like a year and a half later. He was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry." He's like, "I had no idea. Like, this is your thing. Like, it's part of your value, right?"
Yeah.
Because photo and video teams, they have a value, and sometimes it's taking photos, and you get great shots, of course. But some parts of it are things that are intangible. They are
True.
Nikki being the calm, like, source of, like, energy to the bride in moments of her just going, "I don't know if I look," and she for her to say, like, "Look," I mean, my wife's very put together. She's a very beautiful woman. When a beautiful woman like that says, "You look stunning," right? And the bride goes, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Nicole's telling me."
Yeah.
So I gotta
Feels like you validated that,
yeah,
Nicole.
yeah. And it's
And
it's
you
a
can
beautiful thing.
validate
And
that.
she knows the cool thing is she knows what to do to kind of even make it better. So like we lean on her and we're like, "Nikki, just do the thing." And she's like, "All right, I got it." And she's like, she's very zen. I'm very, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And
Follow
that's
the
our
rock
energy.
star.
And that's the yin and yang. That's why our marriage works so well in that regard too, because we have this if she's calm, I'm like, "Let's get up," and if I'm too, she's like, "Hey, let's go down." Like, let's
Right.
so we kind of balance each other out that way, and I think that's really beautiful.
When couples are like, I'm just curious because I know that I get this question a lot, like, hey, we don't really know what questions to ask. Sometimes they get on meet and greets with
Mhm.
photographers and sometimes their thought process is more like an itemized item in their budget. And I understand that everybody has a budget. I respect that. And obviously the last thing I want to do is present you a vendor that's going to take your budget to new heights. But, with quite frankly, I think the expectation of photography and videography has certainly increased even just in the past 3 years. I mean, how do you think couples should be approaching this with their thought process of like, consults and vetting people? Because I think that it's just there's so much saturation that sometimes it's difficult. And I think aside from the fact that you have a beautiful portfolio, at least from a vendor perspective, and I think a lot of clients, because they say these things about you guys too, is that your social media really, I think, does such a great job of portraying both portrait and your portfolio, but also your personalities. And people love that y'all don't take yourselves so seriously. And I
Right.
think that they feel, which I can attest to, when you bring that type of energy into an event where it's like, no one's dying today, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
It really does allow the pressure to be off. I don't know. I'm curious from your perspective, it might help couples out there when they're thinking about hiring their photo video team.
I think it comes down to, look, you're spending what, probably 20-25 hours with your photo video team. Um, you should kind of have a relationship and be able to laugh with them.
Mhm.
You should be able to have,
Empathy,
yeah,
lots of empathy.
and that's a big thing. Like, if your photo video team doesn't have empathy, doesn't feel like it feels very like, "All right, we're done." Like, it's, 5 hour, as opposed to, "You know what? I know we were done an hour ago, but I'm gonna hang out because I'm gonna
Mhm.
go toe to toe with these guys, and we're gonna have a shot with them." And like, my wife doesn't drink anymore, but like I will be at the bar with the groom. And he's
Mhm.
like, and it's funny, they play a game now, right? Where they're like, see if we can get him drunk. But every week someone's trying to get me drunk, and that doesn't happen because at the end of the day, I'm doing shots with the groom and the bride. And
Right.
it's this beautiful thing of like, they don't view you as
A vendor.
the vendor or a
We're more
photo video
friends with
team.
cameras.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key is if you can have friends with cameras, then you suddenly don't feel this thing of like stiffening up where like the photo, hi, how are you? Like, as
Mhm.
opposed to like, oh, cool. Hey, come over. Like, let's have a shot together. Like, and then you get these candid moments
Mhm.
that are very much like, hey, look, they weren't even thinking about it.
Mm.
They didn't even realize we're capturing.
And we
like,
see
Yeah.
that transition from day one till reception. First day, everyone's very hyper aware of us, and by the end of the evening, everyone's like, "Hey, how are you?" And click, click, and you know what I mean. You get those shots, and through the week, we know their names, we know the dynamic, we catch up
Yeah.
on yesterday's joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's important because that helps us
Mhm.
shoot them better as well. We know who the key people are. We
Mhm.
know, who are the people or the moments that the clients really want captured. The rest of the guests don't know that, but we know everything about
Yeah.
everyone because we have them fill out the questionnaire. We have
Right.
multiple conversations before. We know their vibe. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like some people be more high energy, like P. The bride's more like already like subtle. You know what I
Zen.
mean? Or Zen, and she
Mhm.
wants that kind of vibe. We're like, we got you. We got
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so good. I think going into at least with a little bit of knowledge, obviously, about couples' personalities, certainly support and help by all means. But
Oh, yeah.
sometimes, quite frankly, you never know what you're going to get once you're on site.
It's true.
Emotions are running high. You're like,
Yes.
oh,
Sure.
mom's been quiet for the past year, but she's not quiet today. And,
Yeah.
so it's just,
We've
we're
had
running
that.
into, and, you're having to pivot. And, but honestly, I respect so much what you guys do, and I can't thank you enough for coming on today to just
Oh,
share
thank you.
about your story and really where you're at. But I'm curious, what does the next sort of decade look like for y'all in terms of what you're planning?
It's been 6 years now, so I think
This is
we
year 6. We just started year 6.
yeah.
It's so
I
hard to believe it's only been 6 years.
I know people say that all the time.
For us too, to be honest with you, it feels like a
Really.
whirlwind.
Yeah.
We have some things coming that I think are gonna be very surprising,
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
industry. So, as I come from a tech background, I'm building things along the way, courses and yada yada, all that stuff. And we've been doing speaking things. Now I did, my first TED talk last year, and then, so now, we're doing a lot more of that and education stuff. But also, I think we're expanding into markets that I think are going to be surprising. And we're building little like offices and places that, in my opinion, are going to be hot spots and
Mhm.
want to do different things in those arenas too,
Mhm.
like to kind of help brides and grooms. And I think that's our passion now is like, what can we do given the knowledge that we have? Like, how can we help? And also create something that's alternative than just being a photo video team.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we want to be. And I think the next 10 years is going to be crazy fun, but it is going to be a beautiful thing. So yeah.
I'm
That's
really
where we're at.
excited. I definitely think there should be some sort of a course where it's like, okay, unless you've gone through the training, you can't. But I love that. I think that's fabulous. Well, thank you guys so much again for your time. I can't thank you enough.